get to the next part of this data analysis thingamajig, whatever you want to call it. We're going to look at just some card data. I thought first we can maybe start with banner units. It's a little smaller set than the rest, shall we say, spells and non-banner units. So let's just pop open in a new window here. Right now we're just looking at my data. So there's a few ways we can look at this. First, of course, would just be overall win count. Which ones am I winning the most with, regardless of win rates and all that. So no surprise here necessarily that my two favorite Wormkin units are tied at 35. Technically, Chrysalis has a little bit lower of a win rate, but I don't really pay too much mind to that. I mean, it's pretty negligible, the win rates here. So I guess the things we can look at is just I seem to value these highly since I play them a lot. And you could probably take a look here and just see if they have a massive sort of drag down on the difference from your overall win rate. Maybe that's something to look into. Either A, I'm taking it too much, like the situations that it's good in, I'm kind of over-evaluating, or B, I'm just misplaying with the unit. Like with Kinhost Vessel, I would just say my losses were misplaying the unit. There's a learning curve for Kinhost Vessel for sure, and early on it was like not doing pretty well for me, but I've been getting better with that one. It's actually one of my favorite Wormkin units now. I wouldn't be surprised if that win rate sort of normalizes back to at least 0. And just to kind of explain this diff from WR column, it's just like the difference from the overall win rate of the clan. So like here, 35 and 22 is a 61% win rate versus the 62 overall win rate with Wormkin that I have. So pretty close, but a little bit less. I wouldn't say that necessarily means anything bad, though. I think it's more evidence that Bog Chrysalis I'm taking probably just a proper amount, which is a lot. And I think it does just sort of work in a lot of situations. And to be honest, I've recently found the strength of both Endless Bog Chrysalis and Reformed Bog Chrysalis, which is arguably, historically I haven't been using that, right? I've just been using it sort of as a normal unit. And is already good at that. I think it'll get even better now that I think I've found a more broken way to use it. Husk Hermit, Shattered Shell. Again, no surprises here. Sweepers are king in the DLC. No surprise to me either that Husk Hermit has a bit of an edge on Shattered Shell. I generally do just value the health over the actual slay effect. I think you're better off just using other forms of buffing, such as rage or flat damage spells. But, Shattered Shell Slay is still pretty good. Horned Warrior, also no real surprises here. As you know, Hellhorned is my best clan. My favorite clan now. And Horned Warrior is a staple in a lot of that. It's just funny. Look at the top 3 Hellhorn units here. Horned Warrior, Railbeater, Steelworker. Notice anything particular about those 3? Oh yeah, that's right. They were the ones that got reworked. And boy, did those reworks sure work in their favor. I mean, to me, that just fixed the clan as a whole. I'm surprised to hear, I still get like the general sentiment that people seem to not like Hellhorn banners still, and I guess I just can't get on board with that. To me, there was 2 big things that happened in the DLC, for the banner units. Obviously, just the straight rework of these 3 made them so much more useful. And also, just, DLC brought infusions, and I think that Hellhorn has the best spread of infusions for their banner units, particularly the uncommons, which are the ones you're going to see the most, right? Only Railbeater really has a lackluster infusion out of all the Hellhorn banners. All of the other Hellhorn uncommon tier or uncommon rarity banner units have amazing infusions. But anyway, yeah, if you look at Horned Warrior, it's 23 and 6. Hard to deny that that's pretty useful. Same with like Rail Beater, 18 and 5. Steelworker, oddly enough, I prefer obviously to infuse Steelworker, but I don't know. According to my results, just as a unit, it's doing pretty good. Hard to deny 14 and 0, right? And obviously, that might normalize to some losses. I wouldn't say I'm looking still to have Steelworker just be a unit. I do typically find that it is more useful infused into other stuff. But that being said, it's not necessarily always a priority infusion because the unit is fine on its own too, just because it gives that effect. Animus of Will up there too. It is funny that Horned Warrior has more wins than Animus of Will because, if you compare the two, Animus of Will should objectively just be better, right? And in a vacuum it is, but the thing you gotta also keep in mind is Hellhorned as a clan, I think, is just better than Awoken as a clan. Awoken doesn't have any commons on the tier of Ritual of Battle or Fledgling Imp, in my opinion. Razor Sharp Edge is probably your closest equivalent there, which is a good card, but not on the level of those. And I don't know, I also, in my opinion, Awoken's banner units, they have 3 really good ones: Animus of Will, Husk Hermit, and Shattered Shell. I'm not excited to see any of the other Awoken banners. I really don't like the hollows that much. I guess Awoken hollow is sometimes good, but obviously most of the time not when you're running Root Seeds, for example, so half the time it's just not. And then I'm never excited to see Thorned Hollow. I don't even like Vine Mother anymore. I used to like it pre-DLC. It's pretty much unexciting to me now. Honestly, all the rares I'm not that excited to see. Like the Wilting Sapwood I don't like. Steel Singer is similar to Awoken Hollow for me. I mean, it's more exciting to see it versus an Awoken Hollow, but it's like technically it's a really good unit, but you have to have some restores to really make use of it. And even if you do, it can be a bit clunky. I mean, it's 3 Ember and 4 Pip and a single strike unit. It still needs some moving parts to make that work. But that being said, obviously it's insane if you can get it to work. So Steel Singer I can't really knock, but I can knock most of the other banners that aren't Animus of Will, Shell, and Hermit. So whereas like with Hellhorned, and another thing with those is I don't think the infusions on a lot of Woken units are all that good. Like Animus is good, but like Husk is comparable to Rail Beater. I'd even say Rail Beater's is better because at least it has Apex, Imp synergy and One Horn Tome synergy, whereas Husk is just a health thing. It's okay, but like Shattered Shell's infusion isn't that good. Animus is good. The Animus of Speed has a good one, but I don't really like Thorned Hollow. I don't like that one. 10 spikes isn't going to kill anything in the game past a certain point. But yeah, Paraffin Enforcer, and it would have probably a much better win rate. I just have misplayed the use of this unit so many times. Same with, I think Siren of the Sea is probably just overall the best uncommon for Stygian. It fills a lot of roles. I think the infusion is better than I've been giving it credit for. Doesn't always make sense on everything, but even like Siren onto itself is pretty good. Shout out to Hart for kind of that one. That's one I missed in my Twin Infusion videos. Dante is a Dante. That's just like, okay, if you survive the candles, you're probably going to win, except for the one time that I didn't. I still remember that like it was yesterday. Shadow Eater, this one I expect to get even higher. I never used this unit pre-DLC, and I had to play around with it a bit post-DLC because I just had no real experience with the unit, but it has probably become my favorite Umbra unit. Even more than Morsel Maid, more than Alloyed, more than anything, I think Shadow Eater is just the shit. It's fun. It's good. It can be broken. It has a lot of good things that infuse into it. A lot of ways you can make this work, but it's definitely a learning curve with Shadow Eater. Eel Gorgon's really good. I think it's similar to like Lodestone Totem, where it's costly and you definitely have to like build around it. Before you add stats to it, it can be a liability at just the base stats, but if you can add some stats to it, get some survivability to it, get a good infusion like Siren of the Sea, you're going to be golden. It'll be a free win at that point. The only thing that sucks is you can't add quick to it, right? So you have to have other ways to like mitigate the damage. Wickless Baron, I've done poorly with it, but that doesn't mean it's bad. If you look at the other players' stats, it's like the opposite of this. They have huge like positive from win rate. But yeah, we could keep going through every unit. It's not really like Alloy is another one, like Shadow Eater. I had to figure out how to make it work in the DLC. I totally expect Alloy to normalize back to a good win rate for me. So we've looked at it by total win count, but now let's look at it as the difference from win rate. Now these ones where I've only picked it one time, who really cares? I probably just took it to get the Divine Stamp or whatever. But the ones that actually have some totals here can be interesting. Like Hef is a weird one. This one kind of falls to me into the kind of Shard of Divinity territory where it's like, yeah, it's going to have a big win count because like if I got late enough in the game to get Hef, I'm probably in a pretty good spot anyway, especially considering I had the Hammer, which is an insane spell. So like, is Hef really good at herself? Maybe she is. I mean, she's technically like a 2-cost Demon Fiend that has Trample and gives you Pip each turn, so that's good, but I often skip her just because it's like, it would take up I already have my banner units figured out by then, and I just often can't fit her in, and I also just don't want to draw her sometimes. Don't want to spend the Ember to get her down. So it's often a skip for me. But if it makes sense to add her, she's obviously going to be good. Eel Gorgon, we've kind of talked about. Dante as well. Apex Imp, this unit just seems like a free win to me. And I have, keep in mind, I'm removing all Mutator runs or like runs where I played the Seed. Like I've actually had a lot of Apex Imps run a lot more than 5, and I still have yet to lose with this unit. It's an insane unit, and you can almost always find some synergy for it. Branded Warrior is an interesting one. I mean, I don't think it's a good unit. I think it's a great infusion, but there are times it can still be pretty good as a unit. I mean, I know a few of them. It's like I found Gurg's Goad and just put like a large stone on him, and at that point, it's actually a pretty good unit. It doesn't really need the infusion at that point. But 5 and Zip, I wouldn't have thought I've actually used it as a unit that many times, and I also wouldn't have thought I've never lost with it. Steelworker, we kind of talked about. Yeah, so on and so forth. I mean, those were the big difference ones. There's not really much to glean there. I mean, a few of them, it's like they're like Steelworker, Dante, they have huge spikes from the win rate, but overall not really. And then down here, it's kind of a similar story. It's like if I only chose it a few times, can I really glean much from that? I will say I'm not really big on Thug or Tycoon. I know some people can make them work. I just don't have much luck with these units. I don't know. But then again, I've only chosen them apparently 2 times each since the DLC. So I know I've infused them into things and had them win. So at least they're good for that. Crucible Collector, I mean, again, it's only a sample size of 6, but, spoiler alert, when we look at the other players' data, which maybe we should just do now. I mean, there's not much for me to really say here when the sample sizes are so small. So let's remove me from the mix here and see how the rest of players look. It's definitely going to be different. Like this is where we really start to see everything kind of diverge. Come on, you can do it. Okay, here we go. So we'll just go to the overalls first. Now, granted, I still have the players that we're kind of focusing on Melting Remnant in here, but that's fine. I'm just going to keep them in. So, like, as you can see, I was doing poorly with Baron, but I can see that others are doing quite well with them. From their overall win rate of 55% with Melting Remnant, it actually goes up to 69 when Wickless Baron is in their deck. So, obviously, that's a good unit that I've just been kind of misplaying. Lady of the Reformed also, I haven't really been taking her, but she's taken with great frequency and a 20% increase from the overall win rate. Sign of the Sea as well. Very good. Shattered Shell actually has an edge on Husk Hermit, interestingly enough, but I'd say they're still pretty even. Animus of Will actually is more so in the mix. And I think I have been kind of ignoring Animus Will for a little bit because I just always defaulted to the sweepers, but I could see Animus of Will being better than the sweepers in a lot of cases, and I probably should pick her a bit more. Paraffin Enforcer, like I said, this unit's really good. I've just been misplaying it. And yeah, I mean, we still see some of the same. Titan Sentry, I need to pick more. That's definitely one that I've neglected to pick and probably has negatively affected my Stygian game. Bounty Stalker is obviously busted. Bog Chrysalis is up there. That's the top Wormkin unit for everyone else. Keeper of Echoes is up there, not second like it is for me, but Kinhos Vessel, that's not super different. Like, those are my top three as well. Just in a little bit different order. And yeah, Coldcalia, oddly enough, up there a lot. I mean, I can see it in Firelight. I don't know outside of that. Maybe Hellhorned, I would take it too, because there's a rage application. I don't really like the unit outside of those two scenarios, though. Horned Warrior's up there. It's good to see. See, here's an interesting one. It doesn't seem everyone else is really doing that well with Steelworker, but to be fair, it just seems everyone else isn't really doing well with Hellhorned in general. Because remember, I was 14-0 with Steelworker, but here we see 23-31, which is interesting, right? Like, I don't. It's hard to know the context of what was going on with Steelworker in those cases. And Tycoon has picked a decent amount for the others. Remember, I hardly ever pick it, so it's like seeing that and seeing that, granted it's -2 off the overall win rate. I don't really pay much mind to that. If I see that it's picked a decent amount and right around the overall win rate, that means it's a pretty takeable unit. So I probably will have to start looking more at situations where I should add Wickless Tycoon. Maybe just that Harvest of Gold is actually pretty good. Yeah, so on and so forth. I'm surprised Kinhos Carapace was actually taken so much. And it actually does have a slight positive effect on the win rate, so maybe it's better than we're giving it credit for just as a unit, right? I know it's pretty good in Hallowed Halls, oddly enough. You wouldn't think so, but it is. And then let's also just look at their difference from the win rates, sort by that. So Dante and Hef. No surprise on Dante. It's interesting. Hef has the same trend that I had, just a really high win rate. Who knows? Maybe it is a good unit. But again, I feel like if you have that hammer, you are going to win anyway. Like, that thing is busted. That hammer will get nerfed for sure. The hammer that basically has AoE, hits twice and gives a pip on Slay. There's just no way that thing's not getting nerfed. Lady of the Reformed, Bog Deep Cocoon. I do think I think this card's probably more takeable than we can give it credit for. I saw Voyix do a run recently. It's on his YouTube channel. I forget the name, but it's pretty obvious from the title that it's like a Bog Deep Cocoon run. And he didn't necessarily have like huge pieces to hatch it, especially in like the early to mid game, and it still was like pretty decent. So I don't know, it could be pretty takeable. I might look to add that more. Apex Imp, Wickless Baron, Shadow Siege. I mean, if you can make it work, it should be good, right? Legion, no surprise there. Legion is amazing with the DLC. I never really liked it prior to it, but all those good infusions. And yeah, so on and so forth. I can scroll through. If you're just curious, go ahead and pause. I'll go through the whole list here. And I can't really comment on everything, or this video is going to be 7 hours long. So, take from that what you will. And now, we've kind of looked at banners. Let's go ahead and look at the spells and the non-banners. So basically all the other cards. So we're looking at mine first here. Now Deadweight obviously is going to be in every run, so Deadweight's win rate should equal the overall win rate. So that's no surprise there that it's 0 from the win rate. Bounding Echoes, oddly enough, the most taken card, even over like basics which are included in your deck, right? Just goes to show how much I value Bounding Echoes and just how good it is. If I take it that much and it still has a slightly positive effect on the win rate, it's pretty bread and butter, right? Now, Old Magic, that's an interesting one. I mean, it comes up frequently. I thought they downgraded the frequency, but honestly, I see it a lot. I don't know if I'm just lucky in that regard or if it actually kind of is just still pretty frequent to see, but it's pretty crazy that it is similar to Echo's, taken more than all of the basic cards in the game. Echo Break apparently is my top of the basics, but I don't pay too much mind to these basics. I'm really, like, Soul Crushing Guilt is like another one I'd be interested in. That's pretty hard to deny that 50 and 8, like, it's a 23% positive effect on the overall win rate for me. Yeah, I think that card is going to get nerfed. Like, at least to a 1 cost is my guess. Maybe they increase the Echo cost. It'll be a sad day when that happens, but I would totally understand. It's a pretty busted card. Or maybe they just nerf the days amount to like 2. Either or. Primitive Mold, Razor Sharp Edge. I take that one a lot. I do think it is slightly not as good in the DLC as it used to be, though. Like, it's kind of just like barely just enough scaling to get you through. And often you really need like a spell chain to truly make it work. Or a holdover. And you can see, like, it is around my overall win rate, but a little bit less. Not enough less that I'm willing to say that I overtake it. I think often you have to take it. I just think often it's not enough, right? But it's certainly better than all the other trash common cards of Awoken as far as scaling goes, like Sharpen, for example. Sharpen is awful. Ritual of Battle, no surprise here, 49 and 8. An 8% diff from win rate, but you also got to remember my overall Hellhorn win rates are already pretty high, so it's like pretty hard to even get a positive diff from win rate, so 8% actually is a lot in this case, in my opinion. So no surprise here. I think Ritual of Battle is like just the most bread and butter offensive scaling card in the game. Get the Ember reduced and you're good to go. Many ways you can do that, especially with the addition of the -2 Ember Divine Temple. And Rail Spike, no surprise there. It was nerfed because it would be too easy to get infinites. And probably just it was too powerful anyway. But even after the nerf, it's still just an amazing card. Echo Transfer, that is the offensive one. The one that gives you 15 for 2 echoes, 15 damage. Pretty good card. I will say, though, I've probably overtaken it a little bit. I mean, 5% still maybe not enough to say that for, but I think just contextually, I think when it's uninfused, it doesn't make sense sometimes to take it. Like if your main attacking is Bogfly Chrysalis, for example, I don't necessarily know if it's worth it, or if you have Corrupt or Spine Chief, it's in a lot of cases like limiting your damage by losing those echoes. Forced Contamination, again, no real surprise here. It's very similar to Soul Crushing Guilt. Not quite as powerful, but still, it'll delete any unit that you put that on. 3 melee weakness is pretty ridiculous, and you double stack it to 6. It's good for flying bosses. A fun card all around. Tiresome Climb. Like I've said, this card, it was kind of meh before DLC. Is okay, but I still liked it, but now it's like God tier. If I see that, it's pretty damn hard for me not to take it. It answers Divinity top floor. Any floor, really. I mean, you can daze Divinity for 2 to 4 turns, depending on your double stack situation or Iron Drop Cage situation. It's versatile, too. I mean, you can use it on enemy units. If you're not killing them, just put some backliner to the pyre, let it die. Or if was otherwise going to like put a ton of damage on your units before the turn that they meet you, you can just daze them up the current turn. You can use it on bosses before they get to you and just get 2 to 4 free hits in. That's usually game-winning type play. You can even use it on your own units to overstack the floor. You do daze them, but in a lot of cases it doesn't matter that much. So super, super, super good card. I think this is pretty good evidence that you should take it. 43 and 3, right? Similar to Soul Crushing Guilt. I think when you look at data like this, it's like the biggest takeaways, like I said, are the huge positive ones. Like you see something like this and you're like if I was like I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of like a newer player or some player that isn't like doing well with any of these clan combos, I would look at something like Soul Crushing Guilt and see the 58 here, and if I knew in my own play that I typically skip this card, I'd be like, okay, I need to start taking this card more often. Same with like Tiresome Climb, Fledgling Imp as well. Fledgling Imp, Endless, borderline free win, I'd say. Obviously, you still have to answer a few other questions, but the scaling is just out of this world. You have a free chump block. You scale the entire floor. Fledgling Imp is just so good. Now, obviously, you don't want to take it if your plan is to like Hidden Passage or Tiresome Climb, overstacked floor. It's not good in that case. But early on, the great thing about things like Hidden Passage and Fledgling Imp is they're commons, so you're going to get them in the first 2 rings, so you can already kind of see where you're going early on and just adjust accordingly. And so on and so forth. There's way too many cards to really go over here. Let's now kind of look at it difference from win rate perspective. Now a lot of these, you could look at this and be like, oh, Bone Rattler and Bowshine, best cards in the game, right? Sacrificial Res. Not really though. Like obviously I don't know why I took Bone Rattler twice. I would have thought maybe just once to get the Divine Stamp, but apparently I've taken it twice. Maybe that was just for the memes, who knows? But these smaller sample size ones, like whatever. Interestingly enough, the Crucible Extension is 9-0. I think this card sucks, but probably the few times I took it, it just made sense to do so, and I would never really take it unless it was like gonna really take my deck over the top, right? Sylvester Stallone style, over the top. And apparently it was 9-0 in those cases. Drain. Now this one I'm going to take more often. I've recently started to realize, similar to like Tiresome Climb, that in the DLC, Drain just seems amazing. For the same reasons, really, that Tiresome Climb is good. Only offensively, obviously you don't use it on your own units, but like if you put it on the boss, it's gonna really help you kill it. It won't just daze him. It's not as good as dazed, obviously, but sometimes it just doesn't matter. Like probably the most ridiculous example would be that multi-strike boss, right? The bird that does like 7 whatever multi-strike. Drain will just win you the game there, especially if it's double stacked. I like to double stack it. I mean, that's 6 sap, but particularly against Divinity, you play that about twice on Divinity, 2 to 3 times, and it's basically the same as dazing it at that point. It may get a slight amount of attack in on you, but it really, and especially like if the fight goes for relentless, Drain is just gonna solve that entirely for you. So Drain, definitely going to be looking to add that more. Shroud Spike, no surprise there. I feel like there's just such a massive difference in Umbra. If you're relying on Umbra units, which are all Gorge units really, and you have Shroud Spike, it's a whole different world. Shroud Spike just makes the game easy mode, almost. Without Shroud Spike, now you have to do a lot of big brain stuff, right? But Shroud Spike, it's like you can set up wherever you want. And now obviously I either need a Consume Return or a Eternal Stone, or just to Hellvent it a bunch. Like just a one-time play isn't as powerful as replaying it a lot, right? But even a one-time play, if that's all you can muster, if you can get a big one off, that's still pretty game winning. Like if you get on like a morsel, like say you spend 10 Ember on a morsel, what do you call them? The Making of a Morsel one? The dude that gives 6/6, that's 6/6 times 20 at that point. That's going to probably win you the game. And some of these are situational too. It's like Intent on Death. I'm probably only really taking that if I have a Legion or if I have Firelight. And in those cases, it's kind of win more almost, but it's like I'm just solidifying the win at that point. Ancient Synergy. But, we can't get too bogged down in all of this. If you, I'll do a similar exercise. I'm just going to scroll through really quick. And if you are interested in them, go ahead and just pause the video on any of them. Go back to the top. We got 5 pages to get through here. Grovel. That's another one I have been really liking lately. Probably will take that more at, obviously that only works with the Gorgers. Okay, third page here. We'll get to Plink later. I got things to say about Plink. Oh, and while we're on this last page, and I don't know what's going on with these three cards. Furnace Tap, it's like not pull. It's doing something weird. Blazing Bolts makes sense because there's like three versions of the card. I'll have to fix that. Furnace Tap and Nexus Spike, I don't know what the hell's going on there, but for the record, they're 22 and 9, 14 and 10. Furnace Tap's pretty good. Nexus Spike is situationally good, and then Blazing Bolts is all right. But now we're looking at like the worst ones, like Steel Pulleyclaw. I still don't know why I would ever take this over the Trap Shoot. I think I've gotten cute and trying to, every time I've taken it, I've pretty much regretted it, right? 1 and 4 with it. Steward, that's just indicative of any early loss will probably be included here, right? Because you just haven't had a chance to remove them. And then, I don't know, I wouldn't say Preserve is bad, right? I just haven't really been taking it. And Pyroshards I would say is bad. I think. I don't know how you can make an argument for Pyroshards right in the current game. And on that note, Sharpen as well. Like I don't know, 2 Ember for 4 damage and 4 spikes. What world is that good? That card needs a buff. That card needs a buff and a half. But now let's look at the rest of the players really quick just to see how that differs. If anyone can tell me why Sharpen's good, I'd love to hear the argument there. I sure as hell don't know. To me, it only existed prior to the DLC simply because Hellhorn Prince Wrathful existed. But now that doesn't even really... you're going to tell me you can use Sharpen to get to 25 spikes? You got to do that by wave 3 in the Divinity fight. I don't see it happening. But anyway, this is now the rest of the players' data. So we'll look really quick at the ones that are most taken. So theirs, it makes a little more sense that, like these basics and Train Steward come up before the Bounding Echoes, but still Bounding Echoes is up there, right? For me, it was my most taken card, but it's still there. It's still beating out most of the other basics. The only basics that beat it were Train Steward, Primitive Mold, and Fractured. And actually Molded beats out a lot of these as well. Granted, I'm still including the players that kind of heavily played Melting Remnant, so that's probably an artifact of that, but still interesting that it is taken that often. That tells you how important Molded is to like the good Melting Remnant strategy, right? Being able to target your Reform, or if you're Drag variant, particularly just having Reform in general. Then Bounding Echoes is similar. They're similar cards in what they do. It's like they're very clan centric and they enable the clan's mechanics, right? They're just like you're always looking to do them because they allow you to do, like Molded allows you to be Melting Remnant, Bounding Echoes allows you to be Wormkin, right? Now obviously you can make it work otherwise, but these are just the most straightforward ways to do that. And then Crushing Demise, this card needs a nerf, honestly. Like maybe 2 Embers, a reasonable nerf, but it is broken. What can you say bad about Crushing Demise? It has a 29% positive win rate while also being the 7th most taken card, really the 3rd most taken card if you think about it, because you can't really control taking basics and Train Stewards or Deadweights. So it's the 3rd most taken card across a pretty good set of players here, and it has 84% win rate versus the overall 55% win rate for Melting Remnant. It's pretty good. Old Magic also up there. It makes me feel a little bit better about my RNG. If it's, is a little bit higher in my cases, but in general, it's still beating, say, like the likes of Drag, which, considering the players that played Melting Remnant a lot, you know, had Drag a lot since they were doing Rector. It is telling that Old Magic still is beating it out. So Old Magic comes up a lot. You might even be able to, dare I say, if you wanted to target a lot of caverns, you might just factor in that you probably will get an Old Magic. I don't know. I'd like to know the odds there, because if it's found this much, I feel like, I wonder if you hit every cavern in every run, how often you find it. Probably pretty often. And then a lot of these are the same, right? So Rail Spike is up there. Broken Memories, Echo Infusion, Echo Transfer, Razor Sharp Edge, Soul Crushing Guilt, and even you see the same effect, really. I think mine was like 20% positive on win rate. It's 24% here. Hard to deny, when you see both in my data and everyone else's data, a lot of these cards line up, you can be pretty certain that those cards are good, right? Soul Crushing Guilt, Space Prism's another one, Return Soul, so on and so forth. Really quickly, let's just do the same exercise where I'll scroll through, and if you're curious, you can just go ahead and pause the video and look at any particular section. Scroll a little faster. I'll scroll slower here. Oh, that's the bottom of the page. Okay. And I guess also we should look at the sorting of difference by win rate as well. Bone Shine, best card in the game, confirmed. Actually, it's interesting. Must have been one loss. For a while, as I was doing this, it was like the only card that had a 100% win rate across all players. But I think that one loss rolled in at some point. But, obviously that's like them just putting it in their, like, why would you keep a Bone Shine till the end? Well, obviously you're just trying to divine stamp the card, right? So that's what's going on there. But then you get to something like Last Stand. This is also just super good in the DLC. I find I'm taking it pretty often, because pretty often rage is the name of the game, and why not just double your rage? Pretty bustedly good. Excavated Ember, that would be if you took that event and turned the calcified embers into excavated embers. It's pretty good. Hard to deny. I mean, sample size isn't huge, but it's a pretty good win rate. A part of that is if your deck was good enough to make it through two of the hardest rings with dead weights in your deck, essentially, that already means your deck is probably pretty good. But also just having these are pretty good. They're going to burst your energy the turn you play them. They're draw neutral. And also you can set up infinites with them. I wouldn't be surprised if some people were setting up infinites with these in a few cases. Forever Consumed is an interesting one to me. I've never really thought this was that good of a card, but it's not like it's taken a lot, but at 15-4 is pretty low, but still it is hard to deny that it's did pretty well, right? So I could maybe look to add that card a little bit more. It doesn't look like it's one of those you add all the time, right? But in certain situations it looks like it can be pretty good. Wax and Spike, oddly enough, pretty high. It's basically a shittier Hallowed Drippings, but that might just, maybe the point that you get it in the game is relevant here, right? Because it's a rare. So you've made it through, and that might just make it better than it. Because I would have expected, if I compared Hallowed Drippings to Wax and Spike, that Hallowed would be better. But yeah, maybe Waxen is still pretty good. It does give you damage, technically, where Hallowed doesn't. But it gives less burnout, and it applies the burnout to units that sometimes you wouldn't want the burnout on. So that's why I've always thought Drippings would be better, but who knows? Who knows? Then yeah, we've already talked about Demise. One Horn Tome, pretty good. I mean, adding multi-strike is definitely good. Adaptive Mutation, that's another one. It isn't always going to make sense in a deck, but when it does, it's probably going to just win you the run, typically. But yeah, that's pretty much the rest of these cards in a nutshell. And then we can look at upgrades here. And I also have a fun little exercise to go with this. But now granted, I didn't really find a super good way to look at this data. So we're looking at my data right here. Really, I look for, since it's so sparse, like I wanted to see cases like, I wanted to see the full set of upgrades and if there was just certain combos that show up the most and how they did. So like for me, it doesn't surprise me that Ritual of Battle double Emberstone, for example, is so high here, right? That's such a bread and butter one for me to do. Just like, oh, I got a Ritual of Battle. Now I'll go to Merchant Magic. I'm guaranteed for however many gold to just take it down to 1 cost. And at that point, it's an amazing card, right? So 21 and 2, when I do that. The Plink Surge Stone is a hilarious one to me. Like Plink, like everybody hates Plink, right? Pretty funny though that with Surge Stone, it's tied for Ritual Battle. It's winning the name sorting battle here, but I don't know. Plink with Surge Stone, I guess, kind of makes sense that it could be good, right? It just a one-time spike. It might get you 2 morsels along with killing 2 backliners. That's a pretty good deal. Even in the case of like a leftover tank, that's like 42 damage to it. You won't get that from many of the other basics, really. So I don't know. Plink with Surge Stone's pretty good. It did lump in the champs here too. I never really got around to removing that, but we've already kind of looked at Champ Pass, so I'm not really going to talk too much about them. Root Seeds, Emberstone, that's a pretty bread and butter one. Just get them down to 0 cost, and they're, keep cycling through your deck. It's basically like upgrading your draw while also getting free damage, little damage ticks here and there to your units. Echo Break, Surge Stone, similar to Plink. I think there's just a lot of etch synergy, so getting that Surge Stone is good. Torch as well, just target it. You can kill people. Seek Stone, that's the intrinsic upgrade with Bounding Echoes. No surprise there. Just being able to infuse your opening hand right from the bat is often good. But yeah, you keep getting down, and it's like it's hard to really find much here where there's a significant amount of data. If we do it for the rest of players, any guess on if it'll be similar, different, vastly different? Make your bets now because it's about to run. Yeah, okay, there we go. All right, so now, a little bit of differences here, eh? Fracture Emberstone is the number 1, 78 times. Torch Surge Stone is actually beating out Plink, but Plink's still up there, right? Number 4 at Surge Stone. Root Seeds, Emberstone. So these are all things similar to me. I didn't do Fracture Emberstone nearly as much, but I will say that it is a pretty good one because Fracture is a great card. Being able to play it for free is nice. Frozen Lance, Surge Stone. I don't know if that's necessarily good. I think pretty lowly of Frozen Lance, but the good thing about this, I guess, is that it's, pseudo removal, similar to maybe Plink. That's why it's like Surge Stone is always kind of hard to really know, right? It's like, well, is it just a good upgrade, or is it just good that it basically removes it from your deck after you play it? Hard to say for sure, right? Primitive Mold Emberstone, Restore Surge Stone, similar. I think that's definitely in the removal camp. Seek Stone on Bounding Echoes as well for them, so similar there. Molded Emberstone, Old Magic, a lot of Emberstones, right? So if you haven't been using Emberstone, maybe you need to remember to always spend 25 gold on those. It's pretty much worth it. It's basically like upgrading your Ember at a certain point. If you have hands if you can average one Emberstone card in a hand, that's basically an upgrade to your Ember. But yeah, it's really just a lot of Emberstone if you think about it. The Ritual Battle, we don't see the same trend there, which is interesting. How I had the double Emberstone, because I wonder if that's even that common of knowledge then, right? Because that might be, and honestly, that could be a big thing. Like I said, the Hellhorn was the lowest win rate for most other players, where it was the highest for me. There's little tricks like that maybe every player doesn't know, right? Because Ritual Battle, for the longest time, I thought it sucked. And then I saw Narninian do the double Emberstone thing just kind of, automatically. He's pretty big on it. And after I knew that, Ritual Battle became such a good card for me, right? So a lot of these cards, it's like you just kind of have to know what to look for. And it doesn't seem that most of the other players know that kind of trick with Ritual. Otherwise, we should see Ritual up here, right? But it's not even making the top 50. Keepstone on Return Soul's a good one, obviously, but March of Shields Emberstone is beating it out. I would definitely want... Value Stone makes sense, but I guess maybe just it never dawned to do the double Emberstone as much. But that's fine. That's fine. I think that's just something I noticed. That is the upgrades, and actually leads me to my next point. I had here just it's a weird way to look at the data, but I'm just looking at all of our data here. I think I'll keep it that way. So what I'm doing here is often we see the complaint of Frenzystone being, just obviously the most overpowered Merchant of Steel upgrade. So what I'm doing here is I am searching specifically for any unit that had a Frenzystone upgrade included in it. So let's see. How was I doing this? What was it? Did I not have the total here? Damn, well, I think I fucked this up somehow when I was messing around with it. You know what? We'll just have to do that at another time. I was basically trying to show that Frenzystone is the best, but it's not as brokenly different as we thought it was. Man, how was I doing that? Oh, one sec here. Add. I thought it was just like this. Oh, I got it. Duh. Okay. I remember it now. I have a horrible way that I've written this out. So, okay, once it loads again here. So, sorry. We don't really care about any of this. This is just I didn't figure out a better way to do this. There's a total losses and a total wins. So this is just taking everything I've looked at here and putting it in this column. So the total win rate is all we care about here. So when I look at all of our player data, I'm including mine in that too, and I look for when Frenzystone existed, we have a total win rate of 68%. Now let's say, what do I get when I say Large Stone, for example? So it's 68% for Frenzystone, which is the multi-strike upgrade. Large Stone, we all know Large Stone. We often like to complain about it. So now it goes down to 61% for Large Stone. So definitely less, but maybe not drastically less, right? Obviously, it's used a lot less. The total losses and wins is maybe, I don't know, about a third of what we saw from Frenzystone. We can take a quick peek back at that. So large stone results in 61% total win rate and 238 and 151 as far as win to loss. Frenzystone, as you can see, I'm doing a lot of hackery to get this total to work, but 68% win rate, 939 wins to 429 losses. So yeah, I don't know. It's roughly like maybe it's taken about 3 times as much as a large stone. So no surprise there. And we might as well, while we're looking at it, take a look at the others. So Immortal Stone, that's endless, the endless upgrade. Assuming I spelled that correctly. We'll know in a second here. Looks like I did. 65% win rate. So, not too much less than Frenzystone. Taking a bit less, 39 wins, or 390 wins to 209 losses. And what was the other one? Is it Fury Stone? I'm trying to remember. The Quick Stone, I think, is Fury Stone. No, it's not Fury Stone. That's too low amount. We can just scroll through these, and I bet I'll see it. Speed Stone, that's what it is. So this is a quick upgrade. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Speed Stone. %64 win rate, 411 wins to 230 losses. So, again, not vastly worse than Frenzystone. Frenzystone is obviously the king. It's obviously the most takeable one, but who knows? I think there's evidence here that Large Stone is obviously the shittiest, but it's not like massively the shittiest. And but also evidence that, Speedstone and Immortal Stone aren't necessarily like vastly worse than Frenzystone, just maybe a little bit more situational. And that's that. And also we have the Infusion Combos. I don't even actually know. We could look at this really quick. I just was mainly looking if there's particular combos that are used the most. Like for me, this is my data. Transcendent Queen Impling results in the 13 and 0. Pretty hard to deny that that's good, right? Draft on a draft, 12 and 4. That's pretty good for me. My overall, when you look at all of my Melting Remnant, isn't necessarily super good. And I didn't do a diff from overall clan here just because I was lazy. But Fledgling Imp to Fledgling Imp is one of my best. Same with Fledgling Imp and Molten Encasement. Both of those are just super solid infusions. Molten on a Molten's good. Paraffin Enforcer with Draft is another good one. Explosive onto Explosive, so on and so forth down here. They get more and more sparse because we're looking at very specific things here, right? Real quick, let's just look at the others, see if there's anything that jumps out to us. For them, Molten on a Molten is actually the most. Paraffin and Draft, another one. Keep in mind we also have the Remnant players here, so we're going to see more Remnant stuff. And Entombed Explosive onto Entombed Explosive. Alloy onto Alloy, that's one I love. I historically wasn't doing it, and once I started doing it more, it became a kind of a staple. Fledgling onto Fledgling. Bounty with Draft. Train onto Train, that's always a great one. That's just removal, right? Welder onto Welder is not bad. Paraffin Enforcer onto Paraffin Enforcer is also not bad. You do kind of want a multi-strike in that case, but it's very powerful. Yeah, they ran Transcendent and Queen a pretty good amount too, with pretty good results. Steelworker onto Steelworker, not a bad one. It's a lot of armor. But yeah, that's the specific infusions, and I also wanted to see just generally which infusions, regardless of what they're put into, were used the most. So this is my data. Draft was my most, I guess it was tied with Steelworker. No huge surprise there. I mean, if you can make the Draft it's like one of the lowest, basically no downside multi-strike type upgrades to make. So yeah, it'll get used a lot. Steelworker, again, no real downside here. You get the full effect. It ranges anywhere from good to great. It's always going to be a good one. Now, this is an interesting one. First of Kin is actually my third most taken synthesis with pretty good results too, right? 77% win rate, which is higher than my overall Wormkin win rate by a decent amount. And it makes sense. I mean, it's like you'd think First of Kin is situational, and, technically it is, but the situations that it would be good in just tend to happen a lot, right? There's just a lot of good consumables in this game, especially just within the Wormkin clan itself. And you also have consume return mechanics, either with the Echorite Champ or 2 specific cards in the Wormkin arsenal, which are the Wormkin Etchings and Broken Memories. So yeah, that First of Kin synthesis is legit. Same with the Shard Soul Carver one. Any sort of Inspire synergy is just, you get the full effect here at the cost of a pip. There is a downside, but if you can work around that pip issue, is one hell of an infusion. If you compare it to like Siren of the Sea, for example, you only get half the effect. Of course, you don't get the pip downside, but I don't know. I think generally I'd rather have that pip downside and just get the full effect on some like sweeper or egg, any sort of insane unit that you can put it into. And then, yeah, so on and so forth. You can look at them yourself and see here. Let's go ahead and check the other players, see if there's any big differences. So Draft, number 1. Again, we're kind of skewed with melting here. Paraffin, Entombed, Steelworker. It's very similar. The Train Steward, it looks like the other players definitely do the Train Steward merge a lot more than I do. I rarely do that one because I'm afraid to take 25 shards just to remove a unit like that. But hard to deny. I mean, it's better than their overall. Like if everybody together had about a 55% win rate, I think, and this one shows that it actually increases the win rate a decent amount. Obviously, there's a lot of context going on there. Like you'd probably only do this later on in a run, I would assume. We could probably figure that out, but I'd have to construct a proper query for that. But I'm just, it is interesting that it actually has a pretty decent win rate. Like Train Steward Synthesis might not be so bad, right? Siren is up there. That just shows the Siren's pretty takeable, right? Siren of the Sea one. Molten Casement, Baron, Fledgling Amp. A lot of good ones here. Let's see. I can just scroll through really quick there. Getting to about the hour mark here. We already looked at artifacts. I think that's probably good enough for this video. That's mainly most the, I think, card-related data that we'd be interested. To be honest, I don't know that we need to even do another video. We can really quick actually just kind of close out a few of the final parts here. So, where do my runs end? Let's pop this one out. For me, obviously Last Divinity, that's going to be the same for everybody. Every player here is only really going for Last Divinity, as is tradition. Now this one's weird to me that Plated Seal Daedalus seems to be my hardest ring 3. I've never really thought of Plated Seal Daedalus as a scary ring 3. I'd almost say it's one of the least scary to me, but for whatever reason, I have died to it 8 times, which is equal to some other pretty scary shit here. Like Harvesters of Death is scary as hell to me. Seraph the Diligent is scary as hell to me. Like Seraph the Diligent to me is just way harder than all the other Seraphs. If you think about it, it has, the stealth is just ridiculous. It's also not like, if take Seraph the Patient, for example, if you don't want to deal with the trample, but you still want to fight Divinity, you can do that. You can keep your shards between 100 and 130 or whatever it is, and he won't get trampled, but Seraph gets his stealth right at 100. And that stealth, at the 100 even, it's like enough stealth that it'll at least last all the way till Relentless. So you're basically guaranteed that you're going to have to fight a full health Seraph. Now, there's the annoying thing too is like he just kind of has a monopoly on all of the shit that you would throw at him, right? It's like, so you can't hit him with your units because he's stealthed, but you also can't hit him with your fucking spells because he has fucking spell shield. Not to mention your spells are getting burned at the same time. Not to mention your draws are getting fucked at the same time because you got 30 health purifiers shuffling shit into your deck. And he shuffled blights in your deck on top of that to hurt the draws anyway. And he's unpredictable. All the other Seraphs you can predict, you can kind of goad them into different floors. You can't do that with Diligent. Diligent has a random path. And, yeah, it's like he just has a monopoly on all the bad shit. And Melting Remnant has a monopoly on the ways to deal with them. It's like they're the only one that can remove that stealth. And for that matter, damage spell shield. They're the only ones that can stack their own stealth just to counter its stealth. And they have the probably largest plethora of dazed to just stack daze on him. So it's kind of annoying. I don't really like the design of the Diligent fight currently. If I were to rebalance it, I would take the spell shield and move it away. Like, you already have a certain counter on spells with the spell burn. And if you're gonna have him like counter just getting sort of hit by units by having that stealth, then don't let him also be able to counter spells by having spell shield. Like, why not give the spell shield to one of the other Seraphs that really aren't doing shit to us, right? Like, you'll notice on here, I don't have a single loss to Seraph the Temperate or Patient. And I only have 2 to Chaste. So, pretty big difference there, right? Diligent, significantly harder. But that's just a little rant that I thought I'd go on here. What's a good video without a little rant? Protectors of the Clipped. I mean, all of these Ring 4s really kind of are annoying, but particularly Protector... I guess, I don't know why Protectors of the Clipped would really be that hard, but Clipped Infiltration makes sense to me. That's the one that has the haste. It's really annoying. You have half the time to set up. You just... I don't know. They're really dangerous to your Pyre. And Harpy's Guard, I don't know. Just Ring 4 and 5 in general are hard, right? But otherwise, there's not like significant data down there. If we look at the other players, we see similar trends. There's a little bit of differences, but obviously, again, Divinity is going to account for most of the deaths. Clip Tormentors, like Ring 4 and 5, again, just kind of the deadly rings here. Harvesters of Death, no surprise there. Hidden Assault is very similar to Harvesters of Death. You know, it's like you still have the overcharged tanks. It's just the difference is Harvesters is a little bit harder in my opinion because they get sycophants. So like when those Harvesters with tons of health get through to your Pyre, they're just going to kill you that much faster. There's something to be said though for the stealth dudes. Like if you can't deal with them, they're gonna fuck your shit up. It is kind of funny too that the sycophants is significantly less than the other Ring 5s, which I always felt was the opposite pre-DLC, because that particularly like the Wave 2 or whatever was just a nightmare to deal with. But now it's kind of funny that that's actually the easiest Ring 5, which makes sense, right? We have so many ways to remove units now, or just have AoE, that Sycophants becomes a lot less scary. And in general, there's no overcharged tanks with Sycophants. The sharded up overcharged tanks are just a frickin' nightmare. You know, they give armor to the entire floor. It's just a nightmare. On top of having like whatever they have, like 160 health or something. And yeah, I mean, Guardians of Light, that's an interesting one, that it's like significantly the king of Ring 1 here, apparently. First Defense is what I would think it would be, because to me this is the hardest one. But I don't know, Guardians of Light are pretty annoying. That's the one that has the damage shield on Slay dudes. It is annoying, I'll give it that. And yeah, you know, so on and so forth. I could scroll through really quick, but and Diligent is still the top Seraph for everyone else, though it's a little bit closer. Like Chaste, it's 8 versus 13. Still the same spread though, right? In terms of like Diligent is the largest Seraph killer, Chaste is second. There's a few losses to Temperate and hardly any to Patient, which is funny because Patient was obviously we all kind of knew it's either chaste or patient typically prior to the DLC is the answers you'd get for Hardest Seraph. Now patient is just a joke. I mean, his waves are not threatening at all. So really it's just patient himself. It's like if you remembered to prepare for patient, you'll be fine. I think the only time that you lose to patient is if you just got caught by surprise. You know, you didn't prepare for the trample, or you just didn't like get some days or just some answer for him, right? And Temperate, similarly, his waves, I guess, are technically could be damaging, but like if I compared just even it to the Ring 7 Shadewings fight, which should be the closest equivalent, I would say that just Shadewings fight is objectively harder. I don't think Seraph the Temperate got much in the DLC. Like, he got some damage shield. That's pretty easy to get through. His sap didn't really go up. If it did, it didn't go up enough that I even noticed it. And then his waves just, I don't know, they got some more health, they got more damage, but there's not really just a bunch of new mechanics, right? Like, Chaste got a little bit of a new mechanic. It got the Purify, and, you know, Lifesteal's probably more annoying to deal with than just some damage shield or some trample. But really Diligent, you know, Diligent gets all the stuff. It's got the stealth, it's got the spell shield, it has the buffed up purifiers, it's got everything. But yeah, that's probably it for this video. I did also quickly just do a look at like which troops did the most damage. Turns out they just don't really do much damage overall. I have the average and the median. I feel like the median's typically better to look at because the averages are going to be heavily skewed by like times you got killed from 140 health to 0, like in this case. Or alternatively, like if I sort by this patient, it's funny, I actually average gaining health against patient because of mainly a time that I apparently gained back 101 health versus him. But it's like, does this really tell me that much? I mean, I already know that Patient and Temperate are the easiest Seraphs for me, but it is funny that I actually basically average not losing any health against them. And Median, I don't lose any health, though to be fair, Median, I don't lose health basically against any troop other than a few of them. Clipped Infiltration being the most. Really just all of the Ring 4s tend to get me, but that's because I take too many shards, to be honest, too early. So, yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Scourgefell 2. Hate this guy. Hate Scourgefell. Annoying fight. That'll do it. I think that's it for this iteration of data analysis. I don't think I skipped anything, really. If there's anything else you can think of that I didn't cover, just let me know. And also, if you want to send your data in to me and have a similar readout here, I'm gonna give an email address in the video description, and just send it. And I can do this really quick. It takes me maybe 5-10 minutes to get you this report, and I'll just add it to my meta-analysis, and then I'll give you a report back, and you can get all this data to kind of dig into your own data and see if you might get any insights. But yeah, thanks for watching as always, and until next time, peace.